talking all things theatre and events.
We very quickly learned about the new technologies, digital technologies we've got.
A really big thing that I've looked at recently is community engagement. So I come from a rural community.
And so I thought, well, you know what? The baton was there and I picked it up and I've never looked back really.
The Stage Is Yours podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Stage Is Yours podcast. I'm your host Cal Graham, joined as always by producer Dan, and we're talking all things theatre and events. Joining us on the podcast today, we have a musician, director, musical director and lecturer of all things musical theatre. He's played in a number of bands and orchestras of all shapes and sizes, playing all genres of music, and I've had the pleasure of working with him on a number of different shows over the years. Alex Dengate, the stage is yours. Alex Dengate, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. Very, very good indeed.
Mate, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. It's been far too long.
Yeah, really, really good to see your lovely face.
Very much so, very much so. So I'm struggling of what you're a man of many talents.
Wow.
So what exactly do you refer to yourself as these days?
Oh my goodness. Well, what an open-ended question. I mean, I've been referred to many things over the years, as you know. Dog's body, caretaker, scene shifter when needed, stage door manager. I mean, gosh, you name it. Name it, I've done it. Gosh, I suppose at the moment, I'm doing obviously a lot of lecturing. So I'd say lecturer in musical theatre. That's definitely one of the titles.
Yeah.
And then musical director, because I do a lot of musical directing. And then a pianist and a singer, a drummer, percussionist. And I also work for a trade union. So I mean, boom. I mean that covers almost every base. I
was gonna say one man band definitely doesn't quite do it justice, I don't think.
So yeah, lots of strings on the bow or feathers in the hat, so they say.
Amazing. So let's start off with you as a musician.
Yeah.
And kind of from that, obviously you work in just about everything from musicals to Tom Barnwell Trio. Is that I'm right in saying that, aren't I?
You are. I mean, yes. I mean, it's not public knowledge yet, but I have left the Tom Barnwell Trio. It's all very amicable.
Oh, okay.
But just because there's new exciting adventures and things coming up on the horizon, it's just about making space for things and making space for the balance. So I'm obviously still working with both the Toms and the Tom Barnwell Trio. And obviously Tom Barnwell, but he sings in a couple of other bands that I'm in as well. So I'll still see him loads and still do lots of stuff. But the trio itself is sort of, I think they're on the recruitment for a new keyboard player. But they're a fab pair of guys, and the gigs with them are always an absolute hoot. It's a riot, really. I mean, it's a lot of fun. But yes, so that is one of the things that sort of it has changed, I suppose, over lockdown, is that sort of adjustment really of what jobs you're doing and where, which I think a lot of people in sort of creative are experiencing and feeling at the moment, this crazy world we're in.
Yeah, very much so. So we go from that gig side of things into orchestra pit and MD and everything in between, from playing to waving the wand.
Oh gosh, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's such a variety of stuff that I've done over the years, or that I'm still doing, and bits and bobs that come in. And gosh, the conducting is the most fun stuff, I think, it really. And you know, I've conducted things from like a symphony orchestra right down to like a little 3-piece band, or then, you know, a pit orchestra of about sort of 15, 16 people, choirs, you know, mass choirs of people and stuff, and everything in between, really. So yeah, I mean, the conducting is something that's always been a lot of fun to me, really. I'm trying to think. I think the first time I was allowed to conduct was at school, funnily enough, and it happened one morning when we used to have to. I mean, this is crazy. I don't think kids would do it now, but we used to have to arrive at school at 8 o'clock to do band or orchestra practice for school. And so we would be there, like, trudge through the snow and the rain or whatever. And we got there, and our teacher, the conductor, used to have to travel from other side of Birmingham. And one morning didn't turn up. And so we were all sat, there's about 40 of us all in there, strings and harp and all of this. We're all sat there, waiting to start this rehearsal. And anyway, the teacher wasn't there. So I thought, well, we've got to do something. We've all made the effort. We're all here. And so I must have only been about 15. But I went up to the because it was all set up, went up to the desk and what should be on the conductor's sort of podium, but Love Changes Everything from Aspects of Love by Andrew Lloyd Webber. Of course, it had to be a showbiz tune.
It had to be.
And so I thought, well, do you know what? The baton was there, and I picked it up, and I've never looked back really. And obviously, then directed that rehearsal, and then the bless her, the teacher came in about, must have been about half an hour, 40 minutes later, and obviously it was like, what the hell is going on? I can hear the band playing as she arrived. And there was little old me, 15-year-old Al, with the baton, having a whale of a time. So I got stuck in at a really young age with it. Always enjoyed it. But I think the variety is something that keeps you going, really, in terms of your creative edge, and being able to do things differently and being able to try new things. And that's always been a motivator for me. I'll never do the same show twice, or I'll never do the same gig twice. I want to push on. I want to try something new. I want to meet new people, have a go. I mean, think about some of the stuff that we've done together over the years. I mean, absolute crazy stuff. But it's only happened because we're like, well, let's give it a go. Let's see if we can
see if it works. Make it happen.
This is it.
I mean, that, like I said, that brings us on to the things that we've done. And when you talk about slightly crazy, odd things you've done, I mean, Musicals Rock springs to mind with the show of, I mean, at its peak, 20 odd musicians, all from who like to think they're rock musicians, and they're with their long hair and have never seen a piece of sheet music potentially, and slap 35 radio mics in the mix as well, just to keep everything going and stick it into a tight production schedule just to make it that little bit better. No, I mean, those Musicals Rock gigs have been some of the most sort of fun and I'd say sort of higher level or pro level gigs that I've done outside of pro level gigs. Do you know what I mean? Like, in terms of the quality of what the work we were doing, and the sort of the boundaries as well that we were trying to push. Like you say, like 35 radio mics just knocked out into the room, and a massive orchestra pit of musicians, and really pushing the apex in terms of what we can do. And then of course we had years, didn't we, where like the roof of the venue blew off 2 weeks 2 weeks before we were due to open, and we'd sold like 600 tickets or something for the show, and we didn't have a venue, and then transferring the whole lot down to the RSC and literally upscaling the thing out of the ground. I mean, I remember as soon as I knew we'd be fine, because I'm one of those people who's just like, it's all right, I've seen the vision, I know where we're going, we'll be fine, we'll get another venue. But you don't fully appreciate the enormity, really, of having to upscale something like that from a great little venue like the Playhouse in Stratford, which is, we were very familiar with, to then in that time going into the it was the Courtyard then. Courtyard,
An incredible second theatre that they built, which had just been dormant for about the last 12 months. And so obviously we went and got the keys in, and everything that we'd done then had to be upscaled to full scale professional theatre level within, how long were we in for? Like 3 days? We had a day of get-in and then 2 days of shows. I mean, it was
a day of get-in. It was, because myself, obviously the RSC were a little bit stricter with what the students were allowed to do. So I know myself and John Campbell kind of got roped into doing a few extra bits, and obviously RSC were great in supporting us in providing 3 or 4 kind of full-time guys to just kind of just let John O just go, this is what we're doing, and kind of fire it around and fit that all in. And that was on an even tighter schedule than normal, because we didn't have the time to do it. But when you look back at that one, it's that was one of the kind of peak ones, really, as much as it was the week of was a nightmare.
Story I always remember about that, and I'm sure you will remember, that the wonderful Ian Whitehead. And I'll tell you that, we'll recount the story, because I'm sure people that listening at home will want to hear this. I mean, Ian's one of those guys who's very quiet, he's very intelligent, he's a sound engineer and like recording technologist. That's like him. Very, very clever guy. And we were in the RSC on the stage, and we'd had the most horrific rehearsal, hadn't we? I mean, it was
grim. We were sat, yeah.
absolutely grim. I mean, we couldn't get anything working. The lighting was okay. I think we had lights, didn't we? That was about
We had that, and we were just upscaling it because Mitch Hubbard was with us at that point. So
Yeah.
he was kind of that, and it was just more going, well, we've got it, but we've got a lot more now, so let's use it. That's more the issue of that. Yeah, it was the sound side of it that we were just banging our head on a brick wall.
it was just going from bad to worse, and the noises. I mean, I'm familiar with the sound of feedback, but my goodness, what we were dealing with on that show went to another level. It was like the jaws of hell itself were opening up.
We gave up. Did we not call it short? Well, I don't think we got to the end. I don't think we got through a dress rehearsal on that night. I think we got to a point where we were just like, everyone's knackered. It's not happening. And it was an emergency meeting of
we did. I'm pretty sure we did. And we ended up slipping next door to the Dirty Duck, didn't we? And just having to sort of regroup what was going on. But it was in one of those very intense rehearsals where we had, 30 odd radio mics on the stage, however many in the pit. Chris Long was in there as well doing his thing with the music guys, and we were plowing through this material. And in storms Ian, and Ian doesn't shout ever. He never storms in. But anyway, Ian stormed in and literally walked into the middle of the stage, arms out. He went, right, everybody, stop. Now, all of you, put your microphone down, put your instrument. And he's absolutely losing it. And he went, someone has parked in my parking spot. And I don't know, we all just sort of looked at each other and laughed, I think. But it was such a release moment. We were all so like,
we all absolutely needed it. Like it wasn't intended, but it was just needed.
No, and he couldn't work out what was going on, because I think we all started laughing. And he was like, it's not funny. Someone's parked in my space, and he was getting really irate. And in the end, I think it turned. Who was it who parked in his space?
I think it was one of the RSC guys. I can't remember his name, but I think one of the guys that they kind of go to, and it was just. It was one of those moments you just, I think Ian had been off teaching, which was why he wasn't with us in that. And I think it was just, it was kind of just, that was one of those days. It was just like, oh, okay, and got to the end of it. You're like, well, it's got to happen. So let's find a way.
But do you know what? That show, by the time we'd finished with it in that venue, with the one, we had all the help from the front of house team as well. I mean, we had an army of students, didn't we? All the students dropped all the productions that were going on in college. All the staff came down. Louise Gibbons was back out the front, running the front of shop. Morley was down. She was lending in a hand. We had Lisa Blackie was in on the action. We had everybody, and all the technical students came down and did that front of house and box office. It was a massive global team thing. And,
it was like 1,500 tickets in 2 nights or whatever?
We did. We smashed through 1,500 tickets in 2 nights, which is immense for a college show at the RSC. Oh,
it was great.
Happy days. And gosh, and who was the stage manager? She was quite stern, wasn't it? Linda from Scotland, I think she was.
Hi, Linda. It was.
Gosh, she ran a tight ship, didn't she, Linda?
She was on it. Yeah. It's on it. But I think she had to be like that at the start just to get the students on side, because I think she knew, like, if she'd kind of been a bit here and there, the students would have just ran ragged. And obviously that wasn't the case of what was going to happen at that point. But it was well worth it. I can remember after the first show just walking back into that, there was this studio in the back corner, and we were all just in there, just kind of just like, it happened, it finally got there. Because like I said, 36 hours later, we were just like, this is on the ropes. But
I remember we walked into that room, and because obviously I was on stage, you were backstage, and Phil, obviously the director, was in the audience.
Yeah, and he was the only one who saw it. The rest of us were all kind of running around going, just keep going, and got to get it, it's got to happen. Yeah,
running it, working it. And he came in, obviously, he always dresses up really nicely for opening. Yeah. He just looked at me, and he had like tears in his eyes, and he was just over the moon. And I think we didn't need to say anything. We just looked at each other. We embraced, because in those days you were allowed to.
You're like,
and we just had this moment of, gosh, this upheaval, which really started the second that the Arts House roof blew off and flooded the venue. All the way up to that was the build-up, and then obviously the execution and carrying it out. And we had all sorts in, like the mayor was in there, and I don't know if they
suddenly, it suddenly drew the fact that we were there just seemed to pull a huge different crowd. And we were like, well, the fact that we're here, these people weren't coming when we were just at what was the Arts House at the time. um, which sadly I don't think ever really recovered from it. The floor certainly never did. Having been technical manager of the place about 18 months later, it certainly never, the floor was still warped and bent afterwards because it unfortunately never quite got sorted properly. But yeah, that was crazy times on that one. But on the show, but you write all the arrangement for that show as well, correct?
Yeah, so one of the things that I really loved at university, I had this amazing tutor called Robert Ramskill, or Bob. We used to call him Rambo, was his nickname. And he was the most incredible arranger and a composer. I mean, that, you know, he was very, very sort of prolific composer, a lot of brass music and whatever. But I just used to love working with him on arrangements. And the thing I like about arrangements is that a lot of the hard work in terms of like the tunes and the actual sort of song itself is done. But with the arrangements, you can have so much fun with them. And we did, you know, we look at stuff on musicals, right? Like we might look at like West Side Story or something and do like a G Officer Krupke, but like you'd never heard it. So I can come along and we go, well, actually, let's grunge it up. Let's get some electric guitars in there. Let's put some synth lines in. Let's absolutely bust it up. And so I can have a lot of fun with the music arrangements. And obviously we've got the wonderful music team who sort of helped realize that. But then also the vocal parts, like we did some stuff like with something like the Jesus Christ Superstar material, where I'd done 8-part arrangements of Superstar and all that, all, you know, other tracks from the show, whatever, where you can really layer up all the different parts and you can have this wall of sound. I remember doing an Act 1 finale for one of the movie shows that we did, and I think I had about 10 different melodies all going off at a different time, like Purple Rain, and then songs from Les Mis and Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. And so as an arranger, you can sort of think, well, actually, flipping it, we can push the boat out here, and that chords work with that, and you can put that melody over that, and right, let's put that in harmony, let's add that in, and okay, we can get that echoed in the band, and we can have a little guitar solo in there, and then it runs away with itself. So arranging's always been, you know, a real passion, really. And I've done all sorts of like stuff for brass bands or orchestras or jazz bands or quartets and everything, you know, up to like these rock orchestra things that we've done in shows at college and stuff. So I've always loved a good arrangement. You can really get the old hairs tingling on the back of your neck with a good arrangement.
That is it. Yeah, it's great. And obviously we've talked a little bit, a lot already, that obviously we met through Stratford College, Stratford upon Avon College.
You were a student when we met.
Technically never a student. I was an apprentice.
An apprentice, so right.
I might as well have been a student, let's face it, in the first 6 months I was there, because it was just kind of, I was tagged along and they went, oh, well, most of your units line up with stuff on the course. So just basically the first 6 months with the students, basically work alongside them, which is why I got to know some of them really well and still friends with them and have Pando still.
Yeah.
Good pal of mine and stuff. So that was weird. And then, things transpired, shall we say. And that was that. I kind of just got thrust in. Oh, here you go. You need to go and do this. And then I think it was the first musical rock, maybe down at maybe two, I think was the first one I was properly involved with. Two. I
remember that one.
Yeah.
2, which was very confusing because that was actually the third one.
It was actually the third one.
Obviously, we wouldn't want it to make too much sense.
So and it grows back from there. So it was that, but so obviously we've touched on that, and obviously you would say your main kind of job at the moment is obviously as a musical theatre lecturer.
Yeah.
So obviously right now it's kind of all a little bit different, and I'm not quite sure how drama schools are operating right now in terms of, I assume they're still managing to function in some aspect, and obviously yourselves at Stratford College and things like that. So how's lecturing in current world, as it were?
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good question, because I think there are so many different ways that people are doing it, and I think obviously what's driving a lot of what's going on at the moment is safety. So keeping people safe, and obviously you don't know when you walk past someone in the street who they're connected to, whom they might have to be caring for at home, you know, who might be in their bubble or their sphere of influence. So we've had to really change things around at college to make sure that, you know, with the students and stuff, it's all safe. And so, for example, if we talk about musical theatre, because that's what I spend most of my time doing, we have, for example, year 1 musical theatre. They'll come in on a Monday morning. They'll have all of their sessions back to back, Monday through to the end of the day, in the same room. So they're in the space, the big dance hall. They don't mix with any other students. They don't mix with any other staff. They come back in on Tuesday and do the same thing again. And we've condensed all of their timetable into 2 full days from sort of 9 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock. And then they do half a day online on Wednesday. And in that day on Wednesday, we can do cleaning of rooms, sterilising and all that sort of stuff. And then year 2 do their half day on Wednesday. And then year 2 come in and do Thursday, Friday, full days. So we've really had to change like the structure, whereas normally students would be in 4 or 5 days a week with frees or extra rehearsal time or sort of independent rehearsal time or whatever, where they can use the studios in the theatres. But obviously because of that, we've had to absolutely sort of claw back on what we're doing. So they're still getting the same number of sort of course hours that they've always had. But obviously we can't let like even today, so we did a run of a little musical review that we've written, which is called The Japes and Scrapes and Near Escapes of Guys and Gals in Music Owls. Guess who wrote that? And the techies came in and they said, "Oh, can we watch the run? Because we want to make notes for blocking. We want to, get on top of it with the lighting programming and stuff." And I said, "Absolutely, but I can't let you in the room. I can't take you into that bubble. So you'll have to sit in the theatre and beam in via Zoom." And that's what we ended up doing today. And it's the second best, really. Obviously, I'd want them in the room and want them to be able to experience it, but it's just not worth the risk. So everything has been about safety, and I think this is the toughest thing that's facing our sector really ever, and that is that there is this worry or this concern about the spread of a virus that we can't see, that we can't control at the moment. And it's hitting everybody really hard. And all we can do is knuckle down, do as we're told, and just hope that this vaccine that seems to be working works, because that we don't have anything else at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's nice to hear it from kind of an inside point of view, I think, because everyone's kind of speculating about how this happens and how that's happening. But actually, when you then, let's chat to the people who are directly involved and still that. So it's good to hear that they're still getting it, like their contact time is still there. Like I said, it's good that they're getting that. Obviously, I know from being there, it's a shame they can't utilize the facilities you guys have at Stratford College, because it is great, but it's tough in that sense. So, and I suppose obviously for the second years, it's kind of they've got that worry of where they're aiming to go next, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, for them, there's a lot of them, I think, so we offer 3 years now at Stratford. So a lot of them are stopping on to do year 3. And from their point of view, I mean, they're looking at, you can't help but read the stuff in, the stage that's saying like, the theatre sector is going to take a year to recover. Then it's going to take 18 months. Then it's going to take 2 years. And I think the last thing I read was that they were expecting 3.5 years before the West End, for example, or wherever, or Edinburgh Fringe, or wherever you're looking at, before that's going to look like it did. So for these guys at the moment who are training, the best thing that they can do is to get as much training under their belt as they can. And actually, if they wait and sit it out, hopefully they will make it in time for that sort of big blossom again, and that things will boom again, because they have to, because this is where like art pervades everything we do, and as performers, as creatives, we do art all the time, and people sit on the bus and listen to music, or they watch something on Netflix on their phone, or they watch Corrie when they get home, or they get home and they say to their Alexa, play me the number one hit of whatever. And we do it all the time. And we need to be investing in that. That's our future. That's, as human beings, that's how we unwind. Everybody knocks on the telly, or everybody listens to the radio, or some music or whatever. And the sector is just too important to lose. So it will recover. And I hope that the government start to want to support it even more than they already are.
I think it's the initial support was there, definitely, and it's kind of that. And there are signs and bits that things are happening. Starting to happen. Obviously, there are a number of shows in the West End that have adapted to concert versions, which obviously isn't ideal, but those are coming through. I think Les Mis, Jamie, and I think Come From Away have just announced that they're going to start theirs as well.
That's a beautiful show. Have you seen it?
No, and it's whenever anyone asks me like what should I go see in the West End, I say the only thing I've heard unanimously. Stunning things about from everything is, I mean, Hamilton's one thing, but if for someone who's not necessarily into musical theatre, then it's not what I'm going to send to. But I'm like, I think my parents asked me as well, and I was like, the one I've heard unanimously good things about is Come From Away.
Absolutely.
So go see that. And yeah, I've still not. I was due to see it, obviously during this, but then obviously it didn't happen.
No, it's absolutely stunning. I saw it. Well, it would have been a year ago, and Rachel Tucker was in it, and the cast and crew were just fabulous. And the energy, oh my goodness, that came off the stage, and the music's incredible, and it's all done like live there in front of your face. It's done in. It's one act. They do this one intense act, about an hour and 20 minutes. But oh my goodness, it's stunning. And it's one of those shows where you're watching it, and the story's unveiling, and it's, you know, the better side of humanity is coming out, and you're seeing all these, you know, wonderful storylines. And then you think, you know, the song finishes and you're ready to applaud and you start to clap, but then it moves on again, and the next song comes on and the next dance routine comes on, and the story keeps moving. And I remember saying to, who was I with? I think it was with Morley, the lovely Morley. And I just said to her, I don't think I breathed for an hour and a half, because you're sat there and it's like you go to breathe and then another thing comes out, and then another angle or another melody or another instrument, or, oh, it's stunning. Absolutely stunning. I'm sure I didn't actually breathe for an hour and a half.
It's not going anywhere anytime soon, that's for sure.
Absolutely not. It can't.
Certainly stick.
Not allowed to.
No. I think that one will absolutely stick, and we'll see of doing that. So obviously we just touched on that, and obviously drama schools and things. Obviously you spend a lot of time training people to go into drama school and through college, and I think college isn't necessarily what everyone thinks is a conventional route, or they associate college with trades and apprenticeships. So it's a bit of a different route. So like for people who aren't necessarily, for some possibly about younger audience, for people you know, like how do you find that kind of route of college to then go to there, for people who don't necessarily do that, of getting some bespoke training? That's what the word I'm looking for.
No, it's a really good question. So college is quite a unique thing, really, and I think Stratford has always been a very unique college, really, and it's got a really good reputation. It's got a really good name, and I think one of the key selling points, really, for anybody thinking about college or school or what they're doing is obviously the destination. Where do you want to be? What kind of people do you want to be working with? Who do you want to spend your time hanging out with? And one of the things that I've loved about being able to work at college is that I'm working with people who are industry pros. As you know, as a faculty, we're a team of industry professionals who still practice. And I've been so fortunate that in all of the years I've worked at college, pretty much every single time a professional gig or a professional engagement or a show has come in, you know, Morley or Nicky or any of the guys at work, or Ed or whoever was in charge at the time, I'd say, look, I've had this thing come in. Like last year, for example, I had a phone call, it was the RSC, and they said, look, we just, Bruce O'Neill, who's the head of music, they just said, I have to go down to London. There's a conference with the MU. It was all about pay and stuff. And he said, I just need you to cover this Romeo and Juliet for 3 days next week. And I said, yeah, oh gosh, I'd absolutely love to. I'll just need to check the college will let me. And before I'd even finished asking Morley, she said, no, gosh, go, absolutely go. When do you need to go? Do you need to go now? And I said, well, no, it's okay, it's tomorrow. And she's off she went. So it meant that I could just dip into 3 days of MDing Romeo and Juliet at the RSC, and then slip straight back into college and complete the rest of the week. And that's not unusual. You know, a lot of the tutors have come from industry or trained in industry or still working in industry or have those years of industry experience. So as a young person, as someone thinking, right, well, I'd like to go into performance, what better environment for you to be than amongst a load of tutors who are industry professionals, who have all that experience, but also we're also made to train as tutors, as academics, you know, as lecturers and as tutors. So you know that you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting somebody that knows how the business works and how things go, you know, in showbiz or whatever, but then also somebody who knows how to teach you stuff. Because, you know, we've all been to some, you know, master classes, or we've been to seminars, or we've watched tutorial videos about people who are absolutely incredible at their field, top of their game, but they are not good at imparting knowledge always. And so you can have these wonderful people that get you absolutely nowhere. And I've, you know, as a singer, I've had singing lessons with singing teachers, for example, who are top of their game, you know, incredible history, incredible track records. And I go for a singing lesson, and it's okay when I'm there, and then it's gone completely forget. I can't get back to where I was. And then I've had other singing tutors who maybe haven't had such a glittering career, maybe, and they haven't maybe sung at the Sydney Opera House or whatever. However, their ability to combine the skill with the teaching and the combination of that has meant that I've got a lot more out of it myself as a student. So you're having to balance all that sort of stuff up. But if you're sort of listening to this and you're thinking, well, look, I really want a career in the arts, then I would say don't discount your local college. Don't discount somewhere like Stratford. You know, don't don't think that the only route is A levels, because the qualifications that you get at college or at school, they're all identical anyway. They're all worth the same number of points. But it's how you want to be working. And one of the things I love about the college world is that my students call me Al. You know, that's and there's that level-headed thing, and there's no dinner ladies, there's no like dinner bells, and you know, there's no lunch rota or anything like that. You don't have to do playground duty. There's real freedom actually for students, and they have to manage their own time. They have to be independent. They have to be responsible. They have to get to us every day. So you find students have to really buy in. So the students that we then get are the ones that are desperate to be there. And you can walk into a room and say, right, well, today we're going to learn the opening of Sweeney Todd. And they're like, yes, right. When can we get started? Well, we'll vocal warm up and then we're going straight in. And it's like, boom. And they're on it. Whereas, gosh, I mean, when I was doing like geography at secondary school and the teacher used to walk in, I just used to die inside, because that's just not what I'm interested in. I want to be doing. I'm a creative person. So you get to spend 3-4 days a week, 5 days a week, 7 days a week doing what you love. So you get these amazing results, and the alumni really are the signature that means we've done it right, that we've done a good job. And I look at, well, the West End as it was, excuse me, in March, and wow, I think at one point Stratford College had an alumni in almost every show that was up. And so you've got that, you know, credibility really that, yeah, they do come out of us, and some of them go straight into industry. I mean, gosh, do you remember Rhys Byer?
Yeah, he was he was maybe early days when I was
early
there.
days. Yeah, well, he was in Musicals Rock 3, so he was that RSC
yes.
year. Yeah. And he fell out of college, applied for GSA, didn't like it at all, left after 6 weeks, got an audition for Layla, went straight into Layla, and then out the back of Layla was in Thriller Live by the end of the year. And so we have had students. I mean, there's Emil Ruddock is another one who did performance and media with us at college, and he went off. He's done Five Guys Named Mo. He's done Scottsboro Boys, and he's currently in Hamilton. I mean, this, you know, you can sort of go on really. And obviously,
Emil and I went to the same high school.
This is it. It's all the connections. And you've got people like Charlotte Ball, who's just finished in Les Mis. You've got people like Molly Maguire, who was in playing Serena in Fame. She's now doing Starlight Express in Bochum. Taken off from Holly Ayres. She was another one who was out there and working in industry. Got Ashley Nottingham, who's like a prolific choreographer who's living and working in London. You've got Nathaniel Morrison, who's done Hairspray. He's just finished up in Waitress. I mean, you could literally churn out all these alumni. Have all come out of this FE college sector, which really is massively underfunded by the government, but yet survives, yet won't be beaten.
I think it's persevere. And it's absolutely very core as well. It's a great stepping stone for people who want to go on to that bridge between when you finish your GCSEs and if you don't want to do A levels and going on to drama school at university, as you said, because you have that your own responsibility of managing your own time and your learning, and that there's not someone there constantly, and it's not as such a regimented schedule for your week, which A levels, having done them, was a set kind of timetable of you're doing this, you're in 5 days a week. So I think that's where college is great for that stepping stone onto that, but also prepares you for that chance if you've got that opportunity to say skip a step. And
well, why not if you can?
Absolutely. So we've obviously just started listing off Stratford College alumni there. That kind of brings us nicely onto your latest adventure.
How exciting.
Your MTDA.
Yeah.
So
what do you want to know?
What do I know? Well, let's start off with is this your lockdown baby? Is that what this?
Yeah, very much so. This is so Morley and I have had a lockdown baby together. So Morley, this person I keep referring to, Claire Morley. So I've known Claire Morley for about, oh gosh, it's at least 15 years, I think now. And when I first started lecturing at college, so I was part-time sessional lecturer or whatever, and I used to come in and just teach a bit of singing every now and then. Morley was in charge of the first diploma, and so she used to do like the level 2 course or whatever. And so she said, "Oh, I hear you're in the building. I'd really like some of my students to do some vocals with you, please." I said, "Yeah, absolutely fine. Just let me know where and when. I'll be there." I needed and as much work as I could. I just got married, and I needed to bring in the bunch. So I ended up working with Morley on a number of shows over the years, and we obviously found ourselves in lockdown. And we were, talking about college and the timetables and what it's going to look like. And we spent a lot of time on Zoom, talking about where we were at and what we wanted to do and what we wanted to see happen. And we suddenly realized that all of these students, all of these ex-students of ours, like the people that we've just reeled off. I mean, Nathaniel Morrison, for example, was Morley's first year at college, the first year that she taught there. And we've got dozens and dozens of highly trained, amazing alumni out there that were out of work, that were doing absolutely nothing. The theatres were closed, they were boarded up, and they were sat at home waiting for the government grant to come in. And so this idea was born really about striking up a company, MTDA, which is very simply musical theatre, dance and acting. We've gone deep with the name. And the idea of putting on some masterclasses that would mean our students who have got a really great timetable as it is, but it is only on 2 days a week with a half day, but also so that our alumni, we can actually say to some of these people that we've trained, look, come and do a masterclass for us. We can pay you good money to come and work with these students. They can have a masterclass with you. They can learn about you, your training, your skills, and really benefit from your expertise and your experience, in the hope that we give them a bit of work and that the people that would apply, work with MTDA would get an amazing experience. And we launched it in September. And that's exactly what's happened. I mean, we've had some absolutely stunning masterclasses with some incredible West End professionals and West End pros who've come in and done everything from acting through song to preparing acting for camera, for submitting like drama school audition masterclasses. We've had a Hamilton masterclass. We've had a Hairspray one. We've had like a Mary Poppinsy Matilda one. And so we've had these incredible, and large numbers of them selling out in these online sort of classes. But we've sort of embraced online, and that's kind of where it's going at the moment. And we wanted initially to do it, in person, and we booked the rehearsal rooms at the college, so that these guys were going to come up initially on a Sunday and do these masterclasses in person. And then as soon as lockdown sort of broke in, we thought, well, do you know what? We can't push water uphill with this. Let's not fight it. Let's embrace it. And we've been doing online ever since. And I think, to be honest, we'll probably end up be doing online, certainly the rest of this academic year anyway. But we've had the absolute best time. And we obviously, run these masterclasses and the information's out there. And we get people from everywhere coming to do them, from all over the UK, signing up and spending time with incredible performers at the top of their game. And we have amazing feedback from these people. So it's really set us up with this incredible sort of little business model that works really, really well. And it feels like we're sort of helping the system a little bit at the moment, giving people who need a bit of extra work a bit of work, but also the next generation of performers who are, in a lot of schools and a lot of colleges across the UK, they are struggling. They are finding things different. They are finding things hard. But if they know on a Sunday morning or whatever, they can have a couple of hours with a West End professional in the comfort of their living room, then we think we've done a good thing. So it's a super exciting time for
it's great.
Team
It really
MTDA.
is. It's in a weird way, and I found this chatting to someone else as well. Actually, in lockdown and the way you've had to adapt to that has actually probably benefited you in the sense of your reach now, having it all be online, is much greater, and actually arguably the numbers that you can safely have involved in that are even a larger anyway. Or even if it wasn't lockdown stuff, there's only so many people you can fit into a studio. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember when we were, because you do a lot of like Facebook boosts and Facebook marketing
Yeah.
and stuff. And I remember I'd set it all up for like local vicinity stuff. And so when it was in person and we were doing it in Stratford, well, we thought, well, let's market, to a 25-mile radius, because the people that are going to travel are going to be within that radius. They're not going to come much further. And I had this realization that, gosh, now we're online, well, we might as well market to the whole of the UK, even beyond, because there isn't any boundaries. And actually, you can have anybody. I did an amazing training course over half term, and I did it, on Zoom or whatever. But I was in a Zoom room with someone from, Amsterdam. There was a guy in there from the west coast of America. There was somebody in there from Poland, and then there was little me sitting in Stratford upon Avon, and it has opened up some global doors, really, all this online stuff. But yeah, gosh, we're so excited about the MTDA stuff, and we've got a very, very vibrant social media. If you want to find us, we are MTDA UK. That's the plug there. And we've got an amazing website as well. We've got shed loads of stuff coming up in the new year as well. One of the key things that we've noticed, really, from both being tutors, me and Morley, obviously, and working with young people, is that there is a call out for people's support in terms of their mindset and their mental health and well-being. So we don't just look at the physical skills in our masterclasses. We also challenge people from a mindset perspective or a mental health perspective as well, to develop good mental health habits, to develop good mental attitude towards themselves and their skills. One of the things going out in in the new year is a mindset masterclass series. So Morley's just qualified as a NLP sort of coach, a life coaching sort of practitioner, and so she's doing a 6-week series, and it's like half an hour a week, and you come along and she gives you all these tools and all these tricks in how to develop your positive mindset, so that you get these growth mindsets and all this sort of in the system. So we've had a lot of fun combining the need for practical, but also the need for having a real resilience and a real strength, and to be really gritty and determined, which at the moment, no one else is doing. They're not teaching it anywhere else. It's not on any syllabus in the United Kingdom. So we feel that sort of edge as well will really help people become the performer and person, really, that they need to be. So it's super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the nature of the kind of mental health things, I was chatting to a good friend of mine, and we're recording a podcast that's coming out in a few weeks, who's 2 years out of London School of Music, and has really struggled, and just hasn't found that been in the right room at the right time, is how he phrased it. And I was like, that's great. And he said he's just really, really struggled in that. And actually lockdown came at the right time, because he took a break from everything, just went, I can't deal anymore. So, and he's obviously been through the whole system and done that, and I said to him in that podcast, I said, you face stuff as a performer, certainly things that are very, very unique, that no one else is going to really that. And I think I said to the time, I said, I couldn't go through an audition process, and if it doesn't work out, then go again for something else and keep going until you get to the right one. And he gave quite an insight into some of what that can be like, and certainly if it's not going your way, gave quite an insight into that. And talking about being that his closest thing he got to was being Olaf at Disneyland Paris, and got down to 4 guys and literally got chosen or didn't get chosen because he didn't have the right. He was like, or it's the way it came across to him, or he read it, was that he didn't look right, was what he did that. And he said he's really struggled to deal with that. So having that mental side of coaching and things, I think is really important. And it's great that you're kind of branching it away from just the obvious, in that
because
sense.
it is so difficult. And you know what, there's every single person in their life at some point is going to experience some sort of mental health moment, and it doesn't mean that we're there's anything that we're falling apart, or that we're using phrases like we're crazy or we've lost it or anything. But actually, gosh, we all find it a bit tough sometimes. I mean, to go back to like that, when the roof fell off the arts house, it's not that we sat in the office and thought, oh, yippee, this is great, and you just throw a positive word at it. We had to dig deep to turn that around. And I remember it was the first, because this is what life is like, isn't it? The thing blew off, the roof blew off the venue, and that particular week I was also playing in the UK premiere of A Tale of Two Cities in Birmingham. And so every night for those 2 weeks, after we'd done all those rehearsals, all of those production meetings, all of that stuff, I was then bombing it up the road to get into the pit in Birmingham to do that show. And I remember being in the shower because that's where everything happens for me, in the shower. And I was thinking, Al, you're going to have to really dig deep these next 2 weeks, because you've got to be able to leave college at college, because in the night you've got to be able to play. And it was a real fiendish score thing that I was playing as well. It was one of those. Where was I? I think there were 3 keyboards in the pit, and I think I was keyboard 1. I'd somehow been promoted up to this fiendish keyboard part, and the MD, a bloke called Chris Davis, he was all over it. He was a machine. He was absolutely on it. But I had to develop this mindset, it's okay that at the end of my day at college, I am okay to stop thinking about it. I'm okay to stop worrying about it, and I need to get in a completely different headspace to deliver like this monstrous score in the evening. It was an amazing couple of weeks, but my goodness, it was hard work. It was really hard work.
Right then, mate, let's wrap this up into our final questions.
The final question.
The final questions. The ones that the last 3, the ones that everyone asks everyone who comes on the podcast gets asked. And these, you might have already done them. We don't know. It's one of those. And I phrase this first question differently every time, depending on who I'm talking to.
I've got my pen and paper ready in case it's a multiple choice answer. Right, I'm ready. Go on. Hit me up.
If you had a dream show that you could be involved with, that you would MD, whatever you wanted it to be in that role, what would that show be?
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, I love questions like this. This is really
and depending on which hat you're wearing, I suppose here.
Yes. Yeah. Well. So I've always had a bit of an obsession with the musical Cabaret. As anybody who's ever met me will know, just my all-time favourite show. So I've always had a real keen interest in history and the music of Kander and Ebb, and what was going on in Germany sort of in the 1930s, and the rise of Hitler, and how society was impacted, and Berlin as a city has always fascinated me as well. So I would say for me the musical director role in Cabaret is quite a special one, really. And I think because I have such a fond connection with the show and sort of understand the history of it, and the context behind it, and I've been to Berlin, and I've gone and seen where the play was written, and I've stood outside the Kit Kat Club, and I've done that. I would very, very much like to one day do that show. I've MD'd it at college, and it was absolutely stunning. We did an amazing job with it. I suppose like doing it in Berlin would just, I don't quite know what I'd do with myself. But I'd also like to do Chicago, because I think Chicago, from an MD's point of view, is someone like me who's always up for a bit of performing. The role that you get to play as the MD is stunning, really, and it's a scripted part within the play, so you get to introduce some of the numbers, you get to turn around, you get a real involvement in the production. So I'd say they're both Kander and Ebb, so that works really, really well. So I'd say those two, they're up there for me, definitely.
Amazing. That's grand. So second one, and this one stems more because from my own kind of curiosity. What's your go-to post-show snack? That one thing that after a show is always the thing that you go, that just almost becomes habit and tradition. Yeah.
So, do you remember a buddy of mine who helped out on a show with us, Nick Dransfield?
Yes. Yeah.
My mate Nicky, the tech. And anyway, he's an absolute dude. I haven't seen him for such a long time because of everything that's going on, but he's alive and well. And I've known Nick since I was about 12 or 13 or whatever. We both lived in Solihull, and he really got me into curry. And one of the things that Nick and I are famous for is if we've done a gig or a tour or a show or anything really, it will be 1 a.m. and Nick will say, right, well, we've packed the van, it's loaded up, we've got a 3-hour journey home, but we ain't going anywhere till we've had a curry. And so I'd have to say, gosh, my go-to after it, if you
that.
can find wherever you are in the world a good curry house after a show, and you can go in there, and my curry of choice is always a chicken shashlik with a pair of chapatis, and I am as happy as a sandboy. I really am. So yeah, I think I'd have to say it's going to be the curry. Can't
Amazing.
beat the
It's
curry.
grand. I love that story as well. And final one, and this you may have given this out, given that you're a lecturer, in that sense, what you said. So it might not be as hard a question as it has been for some people. What's the one piece of advice or one thing that you know now that you wish you'd known when you first started out that would have made your life a hell of a lot easier?
Oh wow. Gosh. There's a few things that I think I've learned that I'd like to impart, which could probably be in another entire podcast. But I'll tell you what, I'll share one of the things that has been the most influential, really, in terms of me, and I think is the most relevant as well to where a lot of people are at the moment in the world and what they're struggling with and what the world is like. It goes like this. What other people think of you is probably none of your business. And that has absolutely changed me from a very young age. I remember hearing it. Or was it? I read it in a book. I think I read it in a book when I was about 14, and it blew my mind. Because when you're growing up, you're very worried about what other people think of you. You're very worried about how you're perceived. You're sort of entrenched in this. Well, oh, if I do this or if I say that, what will so and so think, or what will they say, or what will they do, or what will they think of me? Whereas actually, that this little book I read, gosh, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. And it sort of broke. It was one of these books that was sort of aimed at teenagers to help you sort of, get yourself together and ready for adulthood. And it was really simple, short little stories with a little moral to them. And this one about what other people think of you is probably none of your business just revolutionized me. And from that moment on, I have genuinely not cared what people think about me. And I'm sure there are some people out there who think, oh my goodness, what an awful piece of advice. You should always be worried about what. But for me, I've found real liberation in that. And I think as long as you're aware of yourself, and that you reflect on how you behave or whatever, and that you are, you stand by the decisions that you make, and that and you own your problems, and you own your mistakes, and you're not afraid to put your hand up and say, I've dropped the ball on that one, that's my fault, and this is how I'm going to fix it. I think that's probably the best piece of advice I've ever read or ever been given. So I would impart that on to your wonderful listeners. But I've also got something else that I wanted to say that I've written down on my list, and that is another little showbizy story for you. So my lovely wife Louise, who I'm sure will be listening to this podcast, is a singer, as you know, Cal. I think you've met her a couple of times.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Easily over the years. Anyway, we were sat having supper on Tuesday, Wednesday night, whatever, and I made a beautiful salmon supper. I mean, it was divine, Cal. You'd have loved it. Encrusted in rosemary. It was delicious. And anyway, we were listening to the radio, and Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas" came on, which obviously is a Christmassy number. Yeah. And I said to Louise, look, we really need to write a Christmas number one, because that would just solve a lot of our financial needs at the moment, in terms of both being creatives and not having any gigs since March. And so we sort of chatted about it, and we came up with a song title. And the song title we came up with was Hold On. And anyway, after a couple of days, a little bit of work in the studio, we've actually prepared and are planning to release this weekend our own Christmas single. Amazing. Me and Louise, that we've put together, and we've got this lovely little song called Hold On. And so hopefully this weekend, if we can get everything sorted, I was doing my IRSCS codes just before I came online this evening to get that ready. But yeah, listen out for it. I don't know exactly when this podcast comes out. This might be January now that I'm talking to you all.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe January.
Maybe.
But have a listen to Hold On by Louise and Alex Dengate. And I'm playing piano and doing backing vocals, and my lovely Louise is singing vocals. And it's an absolutely beautiful song. We're really, really proud of it. And we hope that in all of this tough times that it really sort of hits you in your heart and blesses you. It's a real uplifting song, and you have a tear in your eye at the end, but for the right reasons. And yeah, that's my little bit of news for you, hot off the press. Nobody knows that yet.
I love that. Absolutely love that, mate. Al, this has been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a joy.
And it's been a joy. I really enjoyed catching up with you too.
Fab. Great to see you.
Thank you for listening to the Stage Is Yours podcast. Want to know more? Then head over to all of our socials. You can find us at Stage Is Yours Pod, where you can catch a cheeky glimpse at some of our upcoming guests, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to make sure that you never miss an episode. This has been the Stage Is Yours podcast, talking all things theatre and events. Until next time.